Hello, thanks for joining us.
I look like an airline pilot with this headset.
I need one of those.
It really does make a difference. The headphones are cushioned.
I would fly in your airline, Nez.
Yeah, we might not make it there, but we'll get a real pilot. We'll get a real pilot and I'll just sit there and be like, okay, we're going. We'll let someone else drive.
So we're going to wait for a few more people to join us before we get started, but we are super, super excited to have you here. Nez, I don't know if you can see it in the chat, but Jack is giving you some significant compliments.
Thanks, Jack. That's funny. I guess it could be an airline outfit.
Air Nez. There you go.
Okay. A TWA. You know what? My first flight by myself was on a TWA plane. And I think I flew Braniff once or twice when I was a little kid too. Neither one of those are still in existence.
I miss Midwest Air, which gave you cookies. It was delightful.
Oh, I hadn't heard of them.
At least I think that's what it was.
Okay.
But they weren't around for super long.
Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join before we get started. So while we're waiting, we want to say Happy Administrative Professionals Day to our friends who help keep us in line, in check, organized. So please make sure that you thank the administrative professionals that you work with day in and day out and give them their just due. So thank you.
Yes, a great segue to thank Kathy, who is our St. Louis PRSA administrative professional. She keeps us all organized and on time and helps us schedule all the things. And we are incredibly grateful for the work that she does. And so we want to publicly, the three of us, say thank you on behalf of the St. Louis PRSA board, Kathy, for all the work that you do. We would not be who we are without you.
Yeah. All right, we'll get started here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you survived the cold from last night. That's crazy. We're just here to kind of have a broader discussion on the accreditation and public relations and the APR and how we can help you and be of service to you in your journey to earn it. Whether you're just getting started, I know there might be some folks on here that are already in the process. So this is just a really great educational way for us to just open up the conversation, answer your questions, get to know you a little bit more if we haven't yet, and become that kind of mentor and help for you as you kind of move forward in your process. First and foremost, we're all a part of PRSA St. Louis here. Aurora, Nez, and I, we all serve on the board. So if you aren't a part of PRSA, or if you'd like to become a member, you can definitely do so by visiting PRSASTL.org, I believe, right, Nez? Or Nez is our membership director, so we'll show her email at the very end of this presentation. You can reach out to her directly. But there's a lot of great benefits for joining PRSA, not only just for professional growth, the networking, but really just to enhance our profession. And any way we can do that is great. So thank you for joining us. And then quickly about the chat. We're going to try to answer questions after each slide. If you do have questions, please put them in the chat. If we don't get to your question, we'll get to it at the end. So just know this is kind of a fluid situation here, and we'll try to answer as much as we can as we go through, but we'll also have time at the end too.
Additionally, for those of you that are tuning in on Facebook, we are incredibly happy to have you join us on Facebook as well. However, monitoring the Zoom chat and the Facebook chat is a little tiny bit cumbersome, and so we may not necessarily see your question. I promise we're not ignoring you. Your question is super important and super relevant and super valid. And so if we don't get to your question, please, please, please email us. We really want to be a resource and help you through this process. And like I said, your question is important. We're not ignoring you, we promise. So if we don't get to your question and you're on Facebook or you're in the chat and you have to leave early, please feel free to email us. On that note, I am the APR co-chair for the Public Relations Society of America St. Louis chapter. I'm also the incoming mid-state director for the Missouri School Public Relations Association. I work for the Columbia Public School District as the communication manager, and I received my APR back in 2018. So it's been a little bit of time, but I'm still really connected to the process and very excited to help you all go through your own process. Nez, or Jenna, I'm sorry, it's Jenna's turn.
Hi, I'm Jenna Todoroff. As Aurora mentioned, I serve with her as co-chair of APR for PRSA St. Louis. This is my third year on the board of directors, so I'm always, happy to connect with folks and get to know everyone and help as I can. So especially with the APR. I earned my APR in 2019, so still fresh out of the process, and so I'm eager to help you get started. For the past 10 years, I've been in agency PR at a place called Common Ground Public Relations here in St. Louis. So thanks again for joining us today.
Okay. Thanks, Jenna. Hi, everyone. I am Nez Savala. I am the co-membership chair or director for PRSA St. Louis chapter. I have been part of PRSA in some way, shape, or form for a number of years. I earned my APR in June 2013. My experience has been in communications, PR, and media relations in municipal government, public K-12 education, and that includes charter schools and traditional public schools. And now I work in public higher education for St. Louis Community College. I did not know what an APR was. I went to my first PRSA STL Lunch and Learn is what I'm going to call it. I'm sure that's not what it was called, but I went to my first PRSA meeting in St. Louis sometime in 2005, 2006. And the woman who greeted me, her name is Rita Holmes Bobo, and she had APR on her name tag. And she really was one of the first people that I met. I asked her what APR meant, and she explained. And so in that moment, I knew that I was going to pursue my APR. I was still very young in my career, very new in my career. So, you had at the time, you had to wait about 5 years. So I'm not exactly sure when my 5 years was up, but I did eventually pursue my APR. And I also have to give shout outs to two of my friends who are also APRs, Megan Donovan and Nina Colt. I'm not sure if they're on today, but without those two, I would not have my APR. And I also have to give credit to Kathy Orta, who is retired from Rockwood School District and served as the APR chair for PRSA when Megan, Nina, and I were working towards earning our credentials. So you got to give credit to the people who helped you get to where you are. So thank you all for being here today. And again, we will answer your questions as we can. Just drop them in the chat.
And funny, Nez, you mentioned Nina, that you worked with her when you were getting your APR and you guys studied together. Nina was my mentor going through the process. So all, nice little circle we got going on here.
It is. Michelle Mueller was one who I worked really closely with through the Missouri School Public Relations Association. And there are lots of different avenues to get your APR. There's several organizations. So if you are joining us and you are not a PRSA member, but you are an NSPR member or you are a MOSPR member, we would love to have you in our process as well.
Absolutely. So we're going to start just talking through the different, steps of getting your APR. Again, questions, throw them up in the chat or wait till the end. We'll get to them at the end too. But really, before you get started with your process, it's really important to know the time commitment here and how long this could potentially take. There's two parts of the APR. So in getting your APR, you have the panel presentation and then the computer-based examination. We're going to go through each part here in a little bit more detail and provide our advice on what we do the same and what we do differently and all the things in between. So before you start, definitely in preparing your presentation and studying the APR study guide, which can be found at praccreditation.org, that is going to become your best friend. Right. It's going to be your textbook for everything. I would suggest printing off the APR study guide, putting it in a 3-ring binder. So it's nice and beautiful and it's not going to get lost anywhere, and keep it by you at all times. That's going to be where all the information and instructions on putting together your panel presentation is going to be, as well as all the information that you need to study for the exam. So first, we definitely want you to have an idea going forward, the time commitment. I think it's so important to have a goal in mind for when you want to complete your APR. If it's within a year, that's fantastic, but life happens, right? A pandemic happens, work happens, things take place that you just can't control. So be a little bit more realistic with how you would like to attain your APR and how long it will take you. I think I tried just to set a goal for 2 years. I know folks who do 1.5 years. I do know folks who do 1 year, but it just allows you that time for if things were to come up that you're like, okay, 2 years, I had that goal still in mind, and I think that's still attainable with the things that are happening. Once you do apply, so you have 12 months to complete the entire process. So what that means is you'll apply at praccreditation.org. You'll get a nice little letter in the mail saying that you were accepted and you can move forward in presenting and taking your exam. But the moment you get that letter, the clock's on, and you have 12 months from that time to pass the entire process. So there's a couple of tips that we're going to give here to you to make sure that you do that, and you have that year-long time frame that everything happens in that year. First and foremost, I would say to start work on your panel presentation before you actually apply to the APR, just to give you that buffer of time, and knowing that panel presentation is a lot of research. It's a lot of obviously putting it together. You want read behinds, you want to make sure everything's factual and correct. So it takes a lot of time. So I would definitely just recommend that you do that and do that before you apply. And then determine your end date up front. Again, if it's 1.5 years, 2 years, just being kind of open to the fact that things could come up and happen, but you're still on your path to getting your APR.
Yeah, so the recommendation of study first and then apply is one I don't think we can emphasize quite enough. It seems overwhelming when you sit down with your study guide at first and when you look at what all is required, but we really do have tips and tricks for breaking it down into sections and really manageable chunks. If you are someone who likes something to be a little more organized and a little bit more, I show up for a class, there is the online study cohort that PRSA hosts, and it's really super great as far as an option for breaking it down and working it within your timeline.
Okay, thank you. So preparedness. what Jenna and Aurora just said, study first before you apply, and work on your presentation before you apply will make a huge difference. And we're all speaking from experience. So again, that APR study guide is available to you for free at praccreditation.org. Is it org, Jenna? Okay, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. I'll put it here in the chat so you guys can all check that out.
Thank you. Yeah, so you can go to, you can also find it through the PRSA national site. But that study guide again is for free. The study guide does include recommended readings. There's a long, it's a list of, they're calling it the bookshelf. You do not have to get every book that's recommended. Pick one, maybe two, to support your studies. But you will learn all of these things in your APR study group once you decide that this is going to be what you want to do. There are online cohorts such as the Online to Learn's APR Prep. I did join the APR Prep, but I'll explain that a little bit later. There's the free KSA, that's Knowledge, Skills, and Abilities, study workshops that are offered by the PR associations, such as PRSA St. Louis or your local chapter, or because we're here in Missouri, it's the Missouri School Public Relations Association, or any of those PR associations that are part of the Universal Accreditation Board. Get a study buddy or two. I mentioned two of my study partners. I kid you not that if I did not have those two to help study or answer questions, it may have taken me even longer to pursue my APR than it actually did. And then to have someone review your panel presentation, a second or third set of eyes, even if you're just having somebody proofread it, maybe they don't work in your industry, but, and if they don't, that's fine. Somebody to proofread, somebody to read it objectively, and then, find somebody that you work with who is in your industry to review your panel presentation and maybe practice with before you have to go before your group to give your presentation. So again, these are all tips that we can share in more depth to help you prepare for earning your accreditation. So we'll move on to scheduling.
So scheduling, so this, that time clock that starts the second you get your letter on that exact date is exactly 12 months. So one of the things that you're going to want to be thinking about as you're going through the process is, have I studied enough? Do I feel confident enough in my panel presentation that I've got together so far that I'm ready to start that clock? If the answer is yes, then we want you to apply. And then if you're working with Jenna and I, we want you to email us and let us know that you've applied, because sometimes it does take time for us to find enough people to be on your panel. So you have to have 3 people on your panel. The catch is they can't be people that you work directly with or that like Nez was on my panel and I didn't know her at that time, but now Nez could not be on my panel because I know her really well and I work with her and she's amazing and wonderful. Jenna also could, you're super welcome. Jenna also couldn't be on my panel. So part of the process for Jenna and I is to work with other organizations exactly like MOSPRA or other PRSA chapters to find friends to sit on your panel. And that does take time as well as scheduling. So ideally, you would give Jenna and I two months, 8 weeks or so to get your panel together. By being able to have the panel presentations virtually now, that does give us a wider selection of PRSA professionals who have their APR to sit on your panel. But again, sometimes that makes it a little bit more difficult to schedule since it could be a virtual situation. I don't know how long the virtual option will remain. I really, really hope PRSA keeps it forever and ever because it's been really wonderful. I have sat on some panels for candidates in Texas and Virginia, and it's been a really great and rewarding experience for me as a panelist. And so my fingers are crossed that that will remain an option for you as you go through the process. And then once you have gotten in touch with us, you've given us at least 8 weeks, ideally maybe 12 weeks. We will be in touch with you as the process goes along. So let's pretend, I see Jack, who is on the St. Louis board, is on this call. So we're going to pretend that Jack is someone who has decided he's going to go ahead and apply today. So he'll send us an email on April 21st saying, hey, Aurora and Jenna, I have put in my application. I would like you to start searching out my panel. And we will say, awesome, we'll be in touch. And we are so excited to work with you through the rest of this process. And let's say it's been 4 weeks and Jenna and I have 2 people. We'll email Jack back and we'll say, hey, Jack, just wanted to give you an update on your panel situation. We have found 2 of the 3 participants, and we will get back to you as soon as we have a third with some date options for you. Are there any dates coming up in the next 3 months that are blackouts for you? And so we'll start working on that process together so that we make sure the time is something that works for both you and all of your panelists. And then we will have your panel presentation. It will go amazing and swimmingly, and you're just going to totally rock it, and you're going to pass with flying colors, and it's going to be like a super great experience for you. And then we'll say, yay, you passed. And then once you've gotten the official letter in the mail that says, yay, you've passed, then you can schedule your computer-based exam. Ideally, you will be working to schedule your computer-based exam between months 8 and 9, maybe 10 in your year-long timeline, because the testing facility is pretty booked up during certain times of the year with LSATs and MCATs and physician licensing exams and several other things that kind of take precedence, unfortunately, over PRSA exams. So they don't have that as an option during certain times of the year. They are currently allowing candidates to take the exam on their own computer at home, but they still have to work within that schedule. So even though you could be taking it at home versus at a testing facility, you still have to work within the proctors that are available and things like that. So you should be scheduling those between months 8 and 10 at the latest, so that you have some time to take the test before your clock runs out.
Panel presentation, we had a question in the chat about what a panel presentation consists of, and I'm going to go through that actually the next step. So great timing on that one. So Aurora spoke about having to present your panel presentation to 3 APRs. What is a panel presentation? What does that entail? It's a PR plan. So you're going to be presenting a PR plan of a project that you've possibly done in the past, or it could be something that you wanted to do. You've always wanted to do. You haven't done it yet. It hasn't happened. So there's a lot of options here. When I went through and I did my panel presentation, I did one that I had done already and on a campaign that I had done, 2 years before, a year before, whatever it was. I just felt a little bit more connected to the presentation. I knew right off the bat things that I did right, things that I would have done differently. And so having those things in mind just makes you think of the questions that the panelists could ask you about what you would do differently, or why is this result this way, or those kind of things. So it's really up to you though. As Aurora mentioned, pre-pandemic, all these panel presentations were in person. Now they're virtual, which kind of gives people a little bit more flexibility in scheduling, and obviously getting panelists that are from different industries or across the country. So it's been kind of nice. So what you'll do is that during your presentation, you're going to present, I did a PowerPoint. You don't have to do a PowerPoint if you don't want to. I felt that it just gave me some guidance in moving forward with what I wanted to speak about. But you're going to talk through all the elements of your PR plan, about the research that went into it, about your messages, about your goals, your objectives, strategies, tactics, results, right? Timeline, budget, all the things that make up a PR plan essentially. And those are all in your APR study guide. Everything's listed out there. They're also in the recommended readings. If you have if you're unsure of the difference between a strategy and a tactic, I think that trips up a lot of us. It still trips me up, and I have to go back and check it and make sure that, yes, this is a strategy, this is an objective. But you're gonna basically show your overall knowledge of the PR process and all your skills and knowledge, skills, and abilities of how you put that together, and how essentially it was a successful project, or if it wasn't so successful. So you'll have if you do a PowerPoint as I did, you'll have that to present. You'll also have a portfolio of sorts that you'll show to the panelists, and those will contain kind of everything that you use to put together this plan. So if it's research, if it's media lists, if it's a social media calendar, if it's messaging documents that you had put together, a part of it, those are all going to provide context around specific strategies that you did or what you didn't do. So the presentation itself, it's 2 hours. You'll save the first, I would say 40 minutes to an hour for your actual presentation, where you're doing most of the talking. And then that second half, it's, that second hour, if you will, is for the Q&A with the panelists. Well, they'll ask you questions, as I mentioned, what went well, what didn't go well, what would you do right, why did you do this? So it's a more intensive conversation about what you've done, and it really improves your understanding of the process. And that's what they want to know is, do you understand the process? Do you understand how everything comes together, how planning is so important as you move forward with PR. And to be honest, going through the APR process and doing the panel presentation, as much as I did plan when I originally had done the campaign that I had presented on, going back and understanding, oh, I do this because of this, I do that because of that, it almost put things in a different perspective. So I can't stress enough how much the APR process really helped me actually in moving forward with my professional career, and actually moving forward and creating new campaigns and new plans. It just, you think about things differently than you may have not before. So after you present, the panelists will do some deliberation that you won't be a part of. And then you'll eventually receive a advanced or non-advanced recommendation. And that will tell you, like Aurora mentioned, to go ahead and move on to schedule your panel presentation.
I, like Jenna, did my panel presentation on a campaign that my organization had done previously, but we truthfully did it totally wrong. And so I used the RPI process, which is what the study guide really, really emphasizes, which is research, planning, implementation, and evaluation. I basically said, this is the plan, and this is all the things we did wrong, and this is how we should have done it. These are the things that we should have implemented. These are the evaluation metrics that we should have used along the way. And it really, again, just like Jenna said, totally changed how I look at the projects and the plans that I'm putting together every day, because it focuses my attention on things that make a difference and gives me benchmarks to let me know if it's something that's working or not working. And it's a total change to the process of my work. And I can't emphasize how much it has helped me enough. And if you're getting a little like antsy about, oh my gosh, I have to put this together, there are samples in the study guide that really walk you through exactly what it should look like and how you should put it together and how you can answer the questions on the written part of the panel presentation. Nez, what was your experience? I know it was under the old KSAs, but your experience is really awesome.
Yeah, so when I started my APR process, and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to answer Aurora's question, and then I'm also going to mention the questionnaire that is part of the application, because we didn't hit on that. So I, at the time, worked for a public K-12 school district, and I was part of a committee. Oh, that's a good question. Ooh, I'll answer that later. I was part of a committee that was doing a STEM event, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. And it was going to be the first time that we were doing this event for the district on a Saturday. So my role was the communications for this event, and I used that as my presentation. You know, including all of the materials, like the notes that the emails and notes I was sending to the schools, from the postcards, from articles that were written, and the communication steps, and the difference between the objectives, strategies, and tactics. So Jenna is definitely on point with that. You'll definitely need to know the difference. So that was my panel presentation, and this will kind of answer the question about how many people passed the first time. I will tell you that with the panel presentation, when I did it, I thought I had knocked it out of the park, but then I got a letter that said that my panel said that they didn't think I was ready. So if you do get that notice that they don't advance you through the panel presentation, you have to wait 3 months. So that 12 months, now 3 months has been eaten up. You have to wait 90 days before you can do it again. So I think I did mine in February, and then I had to wait 90 days. I did it again in May with a different group, and they were like, yeah, okay. So I got a letter that was like, you advanced. Fantastic. And then it was part of my, the next thing, and I guess we can move on in, because that's going to lead into the computer-based exam.
While Nez is changing the slide to the computer-based exam, I also did not pass my first panel presentation. So between 2017 and 2018, the panel presentation changed from what was previously called a readiness review. So if you are looking at any outdated materials and you see something called a readiness review, know that that doesn't actually apply to you. It used to be that the panel's job was to sort of pre-test you to see if you were ready to take the exam in addition to passing a panel. And when that changed, because PRSA said, hey, we need this to be a little bit of a different process that tests different skills at different points, that really changed how panelists and the job of panelists score the candidates. So Nez took it under the readiness review because I've seen her plans, and I can tell you she would have passed with flying colors under the new guidelines and the new scoring sheet. And when I did the exact same presentation again with a different panel, I also passed. So just know that if you don't pass, it is not because of a significant failure on your part. It's probably because you have to add some more nuances into your plan, or maybe you completely skipped the evaluation portion. You just didn't talk about that. And when your panelists were asking you questions, it was something that you hadn't gotten to in your plan yet. So that's why one person that I was a panelist for failed. And it was just, she hadn't gotten to that part yet. So as far as answering Rachel's question of how many people pass or fail the panel presentation, I don't think we have exact numbers, but of the 3 of us here, 2 of us didn't pass the first time.
And just going off that really quickly before we move on, in regards to if you fail or if you pass, why that is, I think that just reinforces the fact that it's so important to have your panel presentation reviewed by possibly another APR or someone in the industry, so they can really kind of look at it from a wide perspective of a lens, as if it's an APR, they likely have sat on a panel presentation before. So they're going to be thinking in terms of, okay, as a panelist, what am I looking for? And I think, as we've said, we've reiterated here, it's all those elements of that PR plan and where are they, and why you've done them is really important.
A real quick pro tip for those of you that are going through this, the KSAs and the score sheets are not like a secret ballot. They are available on the praccreditation.org website. And so you can print it off And I would use that as your guide for going through and make sure that you're hitting on each of those specific KSAs and each of those elements in a way that would score you as high as possible. So use that as your guiding document as you're putting together your panel presentation. And Nez, you wanted to talk about the questionnaire a teeny tiny bit before we get to the computer-based exam.
Yes.
Because the questionnaire is part of your panel presentation.
Yeah, so the questionnaire, and I apologize, y'all. The questionnaire is part of your application process, and don't think it's a questionnaire where you're just checking some boxes. There's 3 sections, if I remember correctly, and there are sections within sections. So this questionnaire, really, you are forced to think about your career in public relations. You are forced to think about why you want to pursue your accreditation. It is an opportunity for you to really step back and be like, oh, okay, this is what this means. Because earning your accreditation, you don't just earn it and move on. You earn it and then you have to keep it. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the what I know section, but the questionnaire is part of your application. So when you print your study guide, make sure you print that questionnaire too and start working on that, because you have to have the questionnaire complete before you apply and submit your application. So
Jeff just asked a question about the advantages of doing the panel presentation virtually or in person. You know, I can't say that one has more of an advantage over the other. I can say that the in-person presentations really force you to be a good live presenter. But as we've all transitioned into this world where we're presenting on multiple platforms, sometimes live and Zoom at the same time, if you would be a good presenter on Zoom and maybe not as strong in person, you could try to go that route. But I don't think one has necessarily more of an advantage over the other. But by this point, 14, 15 months into this adventure that we're all in together, I think most people are hopefully as comfortable on Zoom as they are in person. The only advantage that I can really think of is if you are doing it virtually, you have a wider pool of panelists to choose from. So that's really the only advantage that I can think of.
Thank you for that question. So y'all, let's talk about this computer-based examination. It is 3 hours and 45 minutes. That is not a typo. It is 3 hours and 45 minutes. You will spend some time taking this computer-based exam. If you take it on site at a Prometric center, they do have rules. You must, you can't have stuff in your pockets. You don't take your notes in with you. You take what's in your brain and you sit down. Oh, we have 23 minutes left. Okay, and then because of the pandemic, of course, there's options for alternative sites, like you can take it at home. So the computer-based exam, you've used your APR study guide, you've read your recommended readings, you know the weight of the sections, like, the research portion is X percentage of your exam. For the KSAs, sorry. The exam is situational questions, definitions, and methods. There was a point when the APR exam was handwritten. I am grateful that that doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, you will take it. You will take the computer-based exam. It's situational questions, definitions, and methods. There will be some questions that have more than one answer. So it might say choose 3 of the 5, and you have 5 options and you need to choose 3, and you need to choose the correct 3. You don't get points for choosing 2 out of the 3. You have to choose the correct 3. Some of the questions are softball questions and you're like, oh, I got this. And some of them will really force you to think on the spot. If you are someone who has test taking anxiety, make sure you brush up on your test taking skills, because while you're sitting there at the computer, that little clock is ticking down and you can see it, right? So you have to determine your strategy. You know your test taking abilities better than anybody else. So you need to determine your strategy and how you're going to work through that. And if you do have, you do need some accommodations, just contact the PR Accreditation organization or PRSA and will work with you. Like I know that Jenna and I can't, or Aurora, we can't make the accommodations for you, but National can.
Right. So like, for example, if you need to wear headphones, earplugs, not headphones, headphones are a big giant no. If you need to wear earplugs, there is a whole process that you need to go through in order to have that accommodation available to you. I will tell you that I had to take off my socks and I was not allowed to wear any jewelry at all. And I had to like super prove that I was definitely not trying to cheat in any way, shape, or form. And if you leave the test room because you are going to take a break or you need to run to the bathroom, you do have to go through the full check-in process again. So just be prepared for that. Know that that's a thing. You also get a very small whiteboard. Think smaller than an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's very small. You will get the most used, most thick whiteboard marker you've ever gotten in your whole life to write on that board with. So just find a very used marker to practice with if that's something that you want to utilize during your test.
Okay, so there's a question about what happens if you don't complete all the questions on the exam in the allotted time. Honestly, I don't know. When your exam time is up, it's up. Those are the questions that they score. And the security process, if online, I don't have an answer on that one. If maybe Jenna or Aurora, I took mine pre-COVID, so I went to a test center.
So I think, and this is secondhand information. So I think you have to download a specific browser extension. And it is fully monitored. So there is a person watching you the whole time and you can't have any extra stuff like it's college course exam level proctored. And they're really secure about that because the exam is a limited data bank of questions. So I can't remember exactly how many are test questions. So they don't count against you. I think it's maybe 10 or 15, Jenna, Nez, am I in the ballpark? Maybe.
Oh, you mean how many questions are asked on the test?
So there's of the questions that are asked, 10 or 15 are test questions. And the test questions are ones that you're answering. They don't count for your score. So if you get them wrong, it doesn't hurt you. If you get it right, it doesn't help you. But they are weighing those questions for future exams. Right. So if everybody gets this question right, it's not going to show up on the exam. If everybody gets this question wrong, it probably is going to be on future exams. So one of the tidbits that I've learned along the way is that there are only like 500 to 750 total questions available for test takers at any given time, because they are written by APRs and they go through a very strict process to be vetted first and then tested with the test takers in order to make sure that they're fair questions to ask about all of the things you should be knowing.
And how many questions are on this exam? 100 and...
I think it was 130. It might be 140, but you're answering a lot of questions. Some of them will get dropped out. You won't get, like she mentioned, you won't get scored for, but you will get an unofficial score as you leave the facility, as you leave the testing center. It's a printout. And again, it's unofficial and it will either say pass or did not pass. You got to wait for your letter in the mail for it to be official. I will say that if you get a skinny letter, you didn't pass, but you already knew that because when you get your test sheet, it breaks it down. But when you do pass, you'll get a nice little envelope in the mail with a certificate with sample press releases that you can send to your hometown newspaper. I'm not kidding. You'll get all of that. So I will say for the computer-based exam, I did mention earlier that I did not pass my readiness review the first time. So I had to wait 3 months and then I did pass, and then I let time go by and I was like, oh, let me go take this test because my clock ran out in October. Well, I took the test, I believe maybe in July or August, and I didn't pass. If you don't pass the test the first time, you can take it again, but it'll cost you. You pay money. I took the computer-based exam 4 times. 4th time I finally passed. Years ago, I probably wouldn't have been, when I was going through that process, I would not have been able to tell you that I didn't pass because I was embarrassed. But it happens. Sometimes you just don't pass. Some people pass on the first time. Some people, it might take you a little bit. It just happened to take me 4 times, and I robbed my credit card each time because I knew that I wanted to earn this credential. And then we talk about maintaining. So that's kind of the next thing about maintaining. You have to maintain your credentials. So every 3 years, you're up for renewal. There's a small fee. You have to basically line out all of the things that you've done. You will get a list of the things that you can do to maintain, like participate in webinars or go to PRSA conferences or workshops. Once you, as a PRSA member, you know that we have free webinars all the time. All of those things count. If you earn an advanced degree in communications or somewhere along those lines while you, as an APR, that counts towards your renewal. So there's lots of things that you can do. If you become a mentor, if you serve in a leadership role within a chapter, all of those things count towards your renewal to help you maintain your accreditation. And how much time do we have, y'all?
14 minutes.
Okay. So what do we know, ladies?
Oh, Aurora, what do you know? What do you know now?
Well, so I know that I know how I like to take tests. So I like to take ACT and SAT style tests where I have a practice test and I can say, okay, cool, I'm really good in this area, but I really need to work in this area. And I will tell you, if that is how you like to take tests, this process is going to be a little more difficult than you anticipate because that bank is so limited, there are not practice tests. So if that's how you like to take tests, then the online cohort is a really, really, really good option for you because it provides sample questions and it provides a live call where you have to do your readings and you have to check in and you can volunteer to present and you can get feedback on your panel presentation. So if that's how you like to take tests, great. There are ways to make it work for you. It's just going to take a little bit more work on your part. The other thing that I want to encourage you to be thinking about as you've passed your panel and you're getting ready to take your test, and that whiteboard is, it's small. You're using a giant thick marker, but don't be afraid to do a really quick brain dump. Come up with some acronyms or some mnemonic devices or something that's going to help you remember key things, because on the test, you can use the highlight function, and I think it's a star or a flag or something that will let you go back. And I can think of 2 questions on the test that I thought, oh my gosh, that answers this other thing that I need to go back to. And so I was able to go back, change my answer to what I think was the right answer, and feel more confident in the submission that I was giving. I will say that pushing that button to wait for your score, it feels like the longest 3 minutes of your entire life.
Yeah, your whole life stops.
It flashes before your eyes. It's so scary to hit that button, but it's worth it. And if you fail, you're in good company and it's okay. We are here to help you through the process and make you as successful as possible.
Right. So, we all have different experiences, but, we'll help you guide. We'll help guide you, and just know that everyone's experience is a little bit different. But please study, use those free resources that are out there. And
use us.
And use us. Yes, yeah. We're here. And so I think one of the things we all talked about when we got our APR, but I'm not sure that we talked about why we got our APR. I gave a little bit of my why because of someone that I met, like first meeting, but also how APR has helped me as a professional. I think about how I approach things differently now. I can spit out a communications plan. I know that a press release is not a communications plan. It is an output, but it's not an outcome. I know that because I have those 3 letters behind my name, I stand out when it's time for looking for a job, or, you know, not that I'm looking for one now. Don't take that out of context. But I believe there's less than 20% of PR professionals who have this accreditation in public relations. So you do stand out. You do stand out. And there are some parts of our industry where you can't apply for a position, or you can't hold a position unless you have those credentials. So for me, it's helped me be more of a strategist. It's helped me be more clear. It's also helped me be more of a trusted advisor or counselor. And it's helped me when I've been in roles where I was the department of one, and I could say, no, I know that this is how we're supposed to do this, because, you know, not just because of my experience, but, you know, I didn't just waste my time earning those credentials. So
it also gives you a common language. So if you've been in journalism, or you got a degree in public relations, the common language to talk to your C-suite or talk to your leadership team in a way that they understand the process that you're going through and how you're going to prove your return on investment for all of the things that you do is really a great end result of this whole process, because you can point to resources, you can use the exact same words and language that they're using in their conversations to talk about your work. So it really helps to validate everything you're doing every day in a way that people across PR understand, as well as up the chain of command. My APR is one step on my ultimate goal of becoming a member of the College of Fellows, which is the highest honor for PR professionals. And so I knew that if that was my end goal, you can't even begin the process for that application until you've had your APR and held it for a certain amount of time. And I mentioned previously that it has totally changed how I view the work that I do and the way I go about implementing plans that I've created. So I will say unequivocally, the APR process has helped me in my work. And I will also say that it definitely helped me get the position that I have now, because school PR has really put an emphasis on accreditation, so that it's standard across districts what is expected of someone in this position.
Yeah, I have to echo everything that both of you guys have said. I think my goal for having the APR was really showing my expertise and leadership within the industry. And then after I got it, I realized that it was so much more beneficial to me in professional growth, in terms of being able to think on a higher strategic level than what I was doing before. And I still use every single day. I use things that I had learned through the process of attaining my APR and everything I do, whether it's creating a social media campaign, whether it's doing media relations, whether it's messaging. And it's just so beneficial to have that, and having that knowledge of this is continuing to help me as I move forward. And it's just priceless on what that means and what that can do for you and transform how you think as a practitioner. One more slide here. I know we're almost done here, but we've already kind of talked through a little bit about what happens after you earn your APR, right? What can you do? You're going to receive your documents of you passed from the Universal Accreditation Board, and information on maintenance, with Nez already talked about. Every 3 years, you'll have to renew that credential in terms of a point system. So you're, like Nez said, presenting at a webinar, attending conferences, even writing a blog post for PRSA, those all count towards that maintenance. But you want to put it to use, right? Easy stuff, updating your LinkedIn, updating your email signature. But what else can you do? I mean, I think what we're doing now is just being a champion for APR hopefuls is so important. Just being out there and communicating the importance of this credential, what it means. I think if more folks had it, it just shows that leadership in our profession. It certifies our expertise. It's, you know, we have high standards for what we do, and we're following those industry practices. And really, it's something that, you know, not everyone has, but I think if more people knew what it was, you know, specifically folks that may not be in PR, they don't, you know, they may not know what APR is. So if you're applying to a job and you have APR behind your name, well, what's that? Well, it's this, and this, and I have this expertise beyond any of your other candidates because I do have this APR credential, right? And, you know, helping validate our work as a community of PR professionals is so important. And then maintenance, of course, is what you make of it. I think the maintenance is so beneficial to me too, even with just doing this webinar and leading this, having that conversations with you all about this process, reviewing your PR plans, helping you with your panel presentations. It just helps us grow as practitioners too. I don't know, closing words.
Oh, I was just going to echo all of that, Jenna, but you're also held to the ethical standards of the organization. So having your APR says, I am an expert, I am upholding the ethics of public relations and will uphold the ethics of public relations for this organization. And I'm really connected to a group of individuals who are going to help elevate all of the work that we're doing across the board. So I really hope that this has helped answer some of your questions about the process. It is a big process, but it is not unrealistic for every single one of you that are on this or watching this on Facebook. It is not unrealistic for you to attain this. It is something that you absolutely definitely can do. You have to have a plan, but that's what we're here for. We're here to help you with it. So if you have questions that we didn't answer, or you have something that you think of tomorrow or next week or next month, our contact information is up right now. And we really hope that you will definitely use it. If you are in the St. Louis area, Jenna and I would love to hear that you're starting the process so that we can offer tips and tricks and suggestions along the way. If you're not in the St. Louis area, but you don't know how to get started, please consider us a resource to help connect you with the right people or even help you along the way.
Thank you. And real quick, if you are not a member of PRSA, please consider. You can join PRSA St. Louis or join your local chapter if you're not in the St. Louis area. If you are in mid-Missouri, you can join. Is there still a mid-Missouri chapter, Aurora? You don't know. Join Kansas City or join St. Louis.
Join St. Louis.
We'll take you. And so again, if you have questions for any of us about the accreditation process, please let us know. Aurora and Jenna are the co-chairs for APR this year, and I am membership. So again, ask any of us questions, and we'll be happy to help. So
do we have any more? I don't think we have any more questions on Facebook. Any questions here that we didn't get? We have about 2 minutes, so we're just going to go right all the time that we can.
Right.
Is there a mid-Missouri?
Oh, there is a mid-Missouri chapter, and I tried to get a member to join the STL. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jack.
Thanks, Jack. So any other questions?
Well, then we will give you 2 minutes of your day back. And we want to say thank you so much again for joining us and for all of the incredibly great questions that you asked. You are ready to start your process, and we're here for you.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.